And hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again with another instalment of my Ultimate New 52 reading guide. To give you a bit of background, I have over the last few years read the entire DC New 52, which was 3,646 single issues. From that I've gone ahead and actually designed a map and an infographic which I'm using for this video series. And today's video is video 11.2, the NewStorm. Before we go any further, I'm going to stress that even if you think you understand the New 52, or even if you only want to read one specific character, these videos of mine use a lot of particular terms that I've introduced slowly over the series so far, and I'm not going to re-explain them as I come across them bit by bit. So if you're watching this video and see that I mention things like the Forever Evil line, or volumes with a big V, or anything like that, and you find it a bit confusing, that's because you need to go back and watch the introductory video, video 0.0, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. But with that out of the way, and with no further ado, here is the Ultimate DC New 52 reading guide. Today's episode is 11.2, the NewStorm. Now if you're wondering why I'm using that rather odd term, that means you need to go back and watch video 11.1, which is the video before this one, because I'm not explaining myself all over again here. Suffice to say, everything explained in that video, so please go on and go check it out. It's important. I'll wait. Have you seen it? Great. So let's dive straight into the map here, and in the centre we've got the Flashpoint event as usual. Above us we have Batman, to the left we have Green Lantern, and in between the two we have, amongst various other things, these yellow circles here, and these yellow circles are the NewStorm. So to start with today, we're actually not going to start near the centre, we're going to start way out actually on the periphery near the Martian Manhunter series we looked at before. Just past the convergence line here, which is the red line you can see there, we have Midnighter. Now the Midnighter series started in 2015 and ran until 2016. Now I love the character of Midnighter. He was one of the best things in the series Grayson, which I covered in one of my Batman videos, and I loved him in the original Wildstorm universe before the New 52. What you're looking at here is the cover for Trade Collection number 1, which was called Out, that's O-U-T, and that collects issues 1 to 7. This is an excellent volume, and one that I've been debating getting custom bound into a hardcover for my own library. It's amazing, and it also reintroduces an amazing villain from the DC universe that had previously been missing from the New 52 up until this point. Frankly, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but it is a great volume. Apologies, there should be a line going up and connecting it to this next volume. And this has got an amazing cover. This is volume 2 of Midnighter, which is called Hard, H-A-R-D. Now, unfortunately, this is a much weaker book. It collects issues 8 to 12 and finishes out the series, but I found it a bit of a disappointment. However, and again, I should have a line collecting this, but for some reason I don't, I do have to give an honourable mention to this series. If you enjoy Midnighter volumes 1 and 2, I would recommend you check this out. This 6-issue collection is a trade collection called Midnighter and Apollo, and it came out in 2017. That means it was published in the DC Rebirth era, and not during the New 52, but it is so clearly a sequel to the DC New 52 Midnighter that I simply cannot ignore it. It is also self-contained, doesn't go on past this, it's just that 6-issue collection. However, I did not enjoy this at all. In my opinion, I thought it was patronising and poorly written. But again, these things are subjective, so please feel free to check it out. And that, of course, is the Midnighter part of the map. Now, we're just going to go back to the central part of the NewStorm. I know we're jumping around a lot, but in these later videos, these things do tend to be quite random smorgasbords of series. And what we're going to look at here is the third one up, which is a series called Voodoo, with this very distinctive cover. So Voodoo ran from 2011 to 2012. It was originally written by Ron Mars and drawn by Sam Basri. This series started incredibly strong. The first 2 or 3 issues are excellent. It has sex, it has violence, it has mature themes. And so predictably, DC got cold feet and took it in a different direction entirely. Josh Williamson took over writing duties from issue 5, and that means that this volume here, which is volume 1, What Lies Beneath, it leaves it as a bit of a disjointed mess of 6 single issues, all collected in one with a very jarring shift in tone. If you follow that line up, we can see that Voodoo has one more collection before it eventually got cancelled, and this is volume 2, which you can see the cover of there. Let's just zoom in a bit. There you are. It's a bit blurry, but you can see her there. And this was called The Killer in Me. This collects the remaining issues 7 to 12 and issue 0, and takes the comic to a weird, schlocky sci-fi place that thankfully then gets cancelled. I wasn't happy with it. I didn't enjoy it. Okay. Moving along then, we then have Blackhawks, which is a series that started in 2011, finished in 2012. What you can see here is the cover for the trade collection. This has been out of print for quite some time. It wasn't really very popular at all. This collects issues 1 to 8, which is the entire Blackhawks series. It's a very 90s story, so I can see why it wasn't very popular, but for some reason, I'll be honest, I loved it. Now I have got a line coming out of this going up here, as you can see to there, to this that has T7 on the cover. This isn't an actual sequel, but it is sort of a spiritual sequel to Blackhawks. And this spiritual sequel is actually called Team 7. So on the spine it will say Team 7, even though the cover just says T7. This ran from 2012 to 2013. It's interesting for lots of reasons, and not least of all because it's got the origin story for New 52's Amanda Waller, which is the sort of young, slimmer, Rihanna-looking Amanda Waller that they have for most of the Suicide Squad series during New 52. This isn't the older, more heavy-set, Viola Davis-looking Amanda Waller, which they have right at the end of the New 52. In addition, T7, or Team 7, also contains the explanation for an extraordinarily important Wildstorm character that has been, thus far, missing in action. And it explains where that character is and why you don't see more of them. So this volume collects issues 1 to 8 and issue 0. I really want it and I don't have it. I've been trying to track it down for a while, but it's been very, very out of print. So that almost finishes it, but leaves us with just one series which is going to take a little while to explain, I'm afraid, and that's up here. Right in between the NewStorm and Batman, we have All-Star Western. So if you're following along, here we are. This is the cover of Volume 1. So All-Star Western went from 2011 to 2014. It was written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, and this is actually the third series of All-Star Western ever published. So this is actually, as a whole, volume with a big V, 3. What you're looking at right now is the cover for volume with a small v, 1, which we'll talk about in a second. Now there's a lot of love for this story for All-Star Western as a whole. An omnibus for it was solicited and then cancelled, and then resolicited and then cancelled again. This upset a lot of people. Personally, I am not a fan of All-Star Western, but then I'm not a fan of Westerns. And I think the reason for that is that I'm not an American. In my experience, Americans have a sentimentality towards the Wild West that the British, like myself, simply do not share. So if you are American, or if you do have a fondness for Westerns in the Wild West, this may well be worth checking out for you. It was not my cup of tea. Now, I will also point out that a lot of people tend to view this as a story in the Batman family of comics, and I can see why. All-Star Western is set in Gotham, but it's set in Gotham in the 18th century. And whilst it does cross over with Batman a little bit, it actually should go here, I feel. And I'm going to explain why. So what we're looking at here is the cover for Volume 1, which is Guns and Gotham. That collects issues 1 to 6. Now if we go up, what we have here is Volume 2, volume with a small v. And volume with a small v2 is called War of Lords and Owls. It collects issues 7 to 12. And as such, it's actually part of the Batman crossover event, Night of the Owls, which we discussed in video 5.1. This Night of the Owls tie-in is totally irrelevant. I think it's issue 9, which is why I didn't recommend it in my Batman videos. Also, it's collected in the Night of the Owls event book if you're a completionist and you're getting the Night of the Owls event book as you're reading through Batman. But I don't think that really warrants enough of a reason to include this entire series into the Batman mythos. So as we head up, what we have here is All-Star Western volume with a small v, 3. And technically volume with a big v3 as well, I suppose. This is called the Black Diamond Probability. Collects issues 13 to 16 and issue 0. For those of you that have the Suicide Squad comics from the New 52, or even some of the Dark family of comics like Sword of Sorcery, might find some thematic links here. However, they're not important or even that obvious. So again, it wasn't enough to compel me to put this anywhere near Suicide Squad or the Dark. Continuing on up, just before the Forever Evil line, we have the cover here, which you can see, which is for volume 4. That's called Gold Standard and collects issues 17 to 21. Okay, as we pass the Forever Evil line, you will see that we have here volume 5, which is called Man Out of Time. This collects issues 22 to 28 and is actually quite a strange time travel story involving Booster Gold that just left me scratching my head, to be honest. And finally, continuing that thread all the way up, right at the end here, just before the convergence line, etc., is the final volume, volume 6, which is called End of the Trail. This collects issues 29 to 34, which is why this series ends a little bit before the convergence line, which, as you'll remember from previous videos, hits at about issue 40. Okay, so there we are, volume with a small V6, End of the Trail, there it is. So at this stage, I don't blame you if you're wondering, Thomas, what's going on? I still don't understand why this series is here. It sounds like, if anything, it should be in with other Gotham stories, and maybe, just maybe, Suicide Squad of the Dark. Why is it here? Well, listen carefully. The reason it's here is because every volume of this series is riddled with backup stories that are added at the back of each issue. Now, that doesn't mean those backup stories are collected in the trade collections. I don't know if they are, and I suspect they're probably not. But I read everything as single issues, and if you're reading along like that, I want you to give you a full, comprehensive idea of what's included. Now, I didn't read these as trades, as I said, but my assumption is that these backups aren't in the trade collections, but it is worth knowing they're there, and I'm going to go through them bit by bit. So why don't we work backwards? Here we are looking at volume 6, End of the Trail. Well, this connects a backup story called Madam 44, which wasn't brilliant, to be honest. Here we've got volume 5, Man Out of Time. That has no backup stories at all, actually, which is a bit weird. As we're going backwards, this is strange, isn't it? We've got volume 4 there. I won't talk about that yet. I'll talk about that in a second. And here's volume 3. Volume 3 is called The Black Diamond Probability. And this actually collects, across these various issues, 3 backup stories. In issue 11, there's a backup called Batlash. Kind of Batmanish, obviously. Doctor 13 is a backup story from issues 11 to 12. And 18, actually 11, 12, 18 and 20. And there's a backup story called Nighthawk and Cinnamon from issues 7 to 9. So there's loads of backups scattered throughout here. Oh, sorry, all that was for... this is what happens when you don't have a script. All that was for Volume 2. Volume 2 has those backups. Batlash, Doctor 13, Nighthawk and Cinnamon. The one we were just looking at, which was Volume 3, has a backup called Tomahawk. Sorry, my mistake. It's easy to get all this sort of stuff confused, as you can imagine. And just to finish it off, there we have Volume 1. And Volume 1, which is called Guns and Gotham, has 2 backup stories. One is El Diablo, and the other is The Barbary Ghost. So none of these backups are especially good. Again, you're probably still wondering, why on earth is this here? Well, the reason, and trust me, I'm certain about this, is this one, Volume 4. If you're reading Volume 4, it has got a hefty set of backup issues from issue 17 to 21, which are Stormwatch backup issues. That's why it's collected here. Like the series Demon Knights I mentioned in the last video, this is a missing and actually quite important and quirky part of Stormwatch history. It fits in between the era of Demon Knights and the more modern Stormwatch era. And so because of that Stormwatch backup, and just the fact that this is a bit of an odd, disjointed, strange series, and the fact that Batman was really full anyway as a section, I decided to put it here. And anyway, look, it's right next to Batman on the map anyway, so if you wanted to loop in around Night of the Owls or things like that, obviously you're welcome to do that if you printed this map off, okay? So I'm going to zoom out. There we have it. All the little yellow circles, those are the NewStorm. We're in that part of the map. Hopefully that makes it all nice and clear, and that's it for today. That's the end of the NewStorm subfamily. Next time, and we're getting very near the end of these videos, we'll be looking at a group of comics that I've created myself and made my own little family of, and they're called The Goofy. In case you're wondering, yes, Harley Quinn is included, but so are several other lines, so we'll discuss that next time. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, and share more widely. And as always, please comment or tweet me. You can comment below or tweet me at @IamThomasJudge. And always, please head over to Amazon.com and pick up the first episode of my prose novel if you want to support this channel. I don't have Patreon, I don't have Kickstarter, I don't take donations. All I ask you to do is to download the novel, which is free if you're on Kindle Unlimited, and less than $1 if you're not. And check it out. It's a series of interviews from a future where superpowers are real and the entire world has changed dramatically as a result. If alternatively you just want to download the map and infographic that I'm using for these videos, that's also on the official book's website, which is nogodswere.kings.com. So whilst you're there, why not pick up the first book and support the channel? Until next time, stay classy.